What up, Bulls Nation? Peck here. We got a live CHGO Bulls podcast coming up for y'all right around the corner. It's an off day. Bulls not having a game means only one thing, of course, in mid-January. Trade talk. There's some new stuff going around the league from national reporters. Warriors still interested in Vooch. AK's asking prices for Vooch and his other vets still too high. Plus, the one and only Marc Stein joins us coming up next. What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to CHGO Bulls Podcast, coming to you live from our studios here in West Loop, downtown Chicago. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck. That's Big Dave. Bow. BAWL Sports. Bow. Will, the GOAT, perfectly coiffed. Gottlieb back in the house. Will_Gottlieb. We got the queen of the controls, the one and only Katie Dovey, hanging out with us. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
There it is. Pew. It's quickly rising up my favorite high charts.
High charts. Yeah. What number on the high charts do you have her high?
I don't know. I just know that it's quickly climbing. You know, just like that Illini player is flying up everybody's mock draft boards right now.
As it should be.
You just know that player and that name is flying up the charts. Yeah. Where exactly, I right now cannot confidently say because I would have to think through some of the favorite highs that I know. That would take a minute.
Take a second, huh?
Yeah.
All right. But you know she's in there.
Oh, she's
That's all
not
that
only
matters,
in
man.
there, but flying up the charts.
Flying up the charts like Casey Kasem.
What's up, Lid, Matty Legend, French Bulls fan, Dub the Boss. Thank y'all for joining us. Welcome back, buddy. I feel like I haven't seen you in a month.
I haven't gotten to say bow in like a month.
You can do it at home.
Say it from the media room at the United
it's
Center
different.
when you joined us.
It's different when we're opening up the show, and I get to do it now. That's we're talking about our favorites. That's number one.
Well, thank you.
That is a greeting in its own way.
It's very kind.
Bow. Bow.
It means several things.
Y'all, happy Thursday. Bulls in the little mini break now in their 3 games and 4 night stretch before they finish out their homestand tomorrow night in Charlotte. So we figured we would take today's show as an opportunity to talk about the latest in the NBA and Bulls-specific trade buzz that's going around the league right now. We did get a trade the other day elsewhere in the NBA. Will we see more and more pick up as we get closer to that NBA trade deadline on February 6th? We are getting down to the nitty-gritty, y'all.
The grittiest of the nitty.
Made it officially to the halfway point of their season last night, game 41 of 82.
Woo!
And now, obviously, the focus shifts to, okay, what can the Bulls do? What might the Bulls want to do to sort of steer this ship in a potentially different direction for the back half of the season? And that, of course, involves maybe making some trades between now and February 6th.
Yeah, and this is why I'm always excited. Well, I'm always excited to see Will Go Gottlieb, but these are the shows I'm even more excited to see him on because, you know, this is the sweet spot for Will. Will enjoys these kind of discussions about the trades, you know, and the money and all those things. So I like sitting and listening to a smart man talk like this gentleman
I just
over
love
here.
the trade machine.
Yeah, man. I like hearing it, man, and I'm ready and excited for it, and you guys should be too. It's gonna be cool.
Especially because the one and only Marc Stein of the Stein line, Substack, the DLLS Mavs crew, will be joining us right after we take our first ad break. So with that, let's dive into some of the juiciest stuff that we've learned recently, which is courtesy of Michael Scotto, NBA reporter for HoopsHype, who in his latest write-up on their website had the following to say, if you will, Katie. Well, the Warriors have continued their due diligence on the trade market and inquired about potential frontcourt upgrades, including Nikola Vucevic, John Collins, Valanciunas, and Robert Williams. League sources tell HoopsHype. Several NBA execs believe Vooch could cost a first-round pick to pry him from Chicago, given how well he's played through the first half of the season. Shout out to Scotto for that reporting.
Shout out.
This is not the first time we've heard the connection between Vooch and the Warriors, who are maybe going to try to add some legit veteran talent to help out Steph and Draymond in that very competitive Western Conference where They did hang on and beat Minnesota last night.
Good comeback
but
on Minnesota.
They are hovering. They're pulling the Bulls. They're hovering around 500 and looking for some help. Now, I did also know that Steve Kerr said something recently about like, hey, sometimes the right thing to do is not to do anything.
Yeah.
So maybe Steve Kerr is not in favor of shaking up this roster drastically right now, but he's not the one making those calls necessarily.
That's true.
The thing about the first round pick is I think what would be most intriguing to Bulls fans, because we've been talking about could they theoretically get a first for Vooch and obviously also ideally for Zach, or if they can't, should they settle for a couple of second round picks if it means pushing this youth movement forward?
Yes. The answer is yes, they should settle. If you can get a first round pick for Nikola Vucevic, who I feel coming from a team like Golden State, it's worth it. Yes. I feel like Vooch is definitely worth that first round pick, as you mentioned, with his play and how he's been playing this season. The man has been outstanding to the point where we're like, this dude's either a fringe all-star or an all-star player. Coach's decision, obviously. But Vooch works well with that team. And not only has Steve Kerr, though, Matt, said that. I've heard Draymond Green say the same thing on his podcast. Steph Curry feels that. He kind of said Steph and Steve Kerr kind of feel that way. Like, they know what their record is. They know what they're hovering under. But these are guys who are 4-time champions, man. Like, they're not just going to be like, yeah, we need all the help in the world. We just, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
They feel like that. They're not like, LeBron. But I respect that. I do. But they truly, truly need help. And Vooch will clearly help them out and make them a better basketball team. How much better, I don't know. I kind of want to ask Marc Stein that. But, yeah, man, if you can get a first-round pick, obviously, yes. You take that and you walk away very satisfied because that's what you want. It's what you're shooting for. I don't want the Bulls, though, to be stubborn and say first or nothing, first or bust, and then just, still have Vooch here on his team. Then we go for that 10 seed, and then here we go again with another season like that.
Go for it. They got that 10 seed on lockdown.
Locked up. Clank, clank. But sadly, it's truth in this. But if they can get a couple of second-round picks, I would be completely satisfied with that. I don't feel like that's just walking away with nothing. You know what I mean? You're not just throwing it at them for Vooch. I feel like he obviously is worth that first-round pick, a lower first-round pick that I think Golden State will have, but also he's worth some second-round picks as well, multiple second-round picks with how he's been playing and knowing that he still has another year to go.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at some of the other names on the center market, and they mentioned John Collins, Jonas Valanciunas, Robert Williams, I think Vooch is clearly the most productive player at the 5 spot. Collins is having a really nice year, but he's making $26 million compared to Vooch's $20. Valanciunas is only making $10, but he's got 2 more years after this one. And Robert Williams is making, I believe, $13, but he is an injury flag of all injury flags. So I think when you look at obviously the production being one thing, the cost in terms of his contract being another, I think he makes the most sense. I mean, obviously they could go get Valanciunas a little bit more cheaply, but he's not as good. He's not as productive. And so when you factor in all those things, you have to imagine he is at the top of any team, not just the Warriors, of their trade wish list here because of what he can provide you. Now, the question for the Warriors, and we've talked about this before, is like, are you paying up for a guy who is not going to be closing? And that is a big deal for a team that is right now on the outside looking in of the playoffs. And so when you're talking about giving up expiring salaries and a first round pick for that, that's where I think, I think AK is right to ask for a first round pick, but I think he also needs to be willing to just take the best offer when the time comes, because at a certain point, it's like costing you a pick to not move this guy. And so we can have like a whole postmortem on the Vooch tenure if and when that time comes. Vooch has been great, but I do think the time is now to take advantage of any deal that is available, just because he's playing as well as he is, because of the direction that the team is trending and should be trending, and just in general, the marketplace not being flush with assets that are going to be coming back. And so I think the Bulls really have to determine what's important to them in return right now. Is it expiring salary? Are they willing to take on multiple years to get a better pick? Do they care about second round picks? I mean, this time last year, They had 2 second-round picks, if not 3, on the table for Drummond, and they didn't take that. Are now they going to be willing to move Vooch, their starting center, for the same kind of return? I don't know. And so I think the Bulls are wise to demand a lot in some of these trades, but at a certain point, like, you do have to come to the table and be realistic with your offer, because you can say Vooch is worth a first-round pick, and I think that's true. But if the marketplace is telling you that that's not the case, then you either have to be willing to accept that or deal with the consequences of not moving him.
You've said several times, and we've talked about Vooch, that when the fourth quarter comes, he's not going to be a guy that's starting. Can you kind of lean into that and explain what that kind of means?
I think, like, the Warriors are at their best when they've got, when they're playing small, right? You've got Draymond at the 5. And so Vooch, I think, like, as we talked about before, Vooch is so good this year, and the way that he's playing can help raise their floor to where they're in the playoff hunt. And that is really important for this Warriors team. They need to make the playoffs. Like, this is go time right now. I mean, they're under 500. They need to make the playoffs, and Vooch can help them get there. But if you're talking about competing at the very highest level, if you're talking about finishing games in the playoffs, they want to go small. That's historically what they have done. And so Vooch would probably be on the bench in those situations. Now, could they decide to go big and play through Vooch a little bit more? Sure. But you've got Trace Jackson-Davis, you've got Kevon Looney, you've got Draymond also commanding minutes at the 5. And maybe Kevon Looney comes back to the Bulls in any deal that might happen. But that is a consideration for this Warriors team of, if we're going to trade for this guy and we have to give up a first-round pick, can he close with us? And are we comfortable closing with 2 big men? And I think that's a question that they need to internally decide if that's worth it.
Another question from our guy Clem in the comments: can we just trade Vooch for a first-rounder, or do the Warriors have to include a player to match salaries? And you could probably expand upon that a bit more as well, Goat. The other part of that, Scotto reporting, as far as players that might come back, you mentioned expirings. Jonathan Kuminga is, according to Scotto's reporting, still a player the Warriors are reluctant to part with, according to his sources. Kuminga will be a restricted free agent this coming offseason. He's playing on a club qualifying offer of $7.6 million this season, well short of Vooch's. The Warriors are a team that is hard capped. They have $330,000, just over $330,000 of breathing room with that first apron. So they are a team that has some flexibility right now compared to some of those other second apron teams in the NBA that legit just have no flexibility whatsoever, especially for in-season trades. But the Bulls could not just trade Vooch for a first-round pick. They would have to bring some of that back. Yeah. The Warriors could not take back a difference of more than $330,000 in a hypothetical Vooch trade.
And I think one of the interesting things about the Bulls situation right now is they have some breathing room before the luxury tax. And so they can take back additional salary. And if they are willing to, use some of that space to help alleviate some of the pressure that an opposing team would be under, right? So if the Warriors are, what was the number? 30,000?
330,000 shy of
the Bulls can take back an extra $3 or $4 million in that deal, give the Warriors a little bit of breathing room, save them some money on their luxury tax bill, and maybe that gets them an additional second-round pick, or maybe that moves 2 seconds into a protected first. And that's exactly how the Bulls should be using their space as leverage. And that was the criticism in the Jalen Smith signing, is that they didn't give themselves enough room to then come in and be one of those teams that's taking on cap space. Taking on bad contracts into their space. And so that would be an opportunity, whether it's in a Vooch trade, a Lonzo trade, a Zach trade, to be able to take back in a little bit more money. That's basically an asset. You're renting out your space to be able to get a pick from another team, and that's exactly what the Bulls should be doing.
And another name that we've seen in a lot of hypothetical trades, trade machine proposals, in a Bulls-Warriors trade is Gary Payton II, who is on an expiring. He will be an unrestricted free agent this summer. He picked up his player option with the Warriors at just over $9 million this season. So when you start to kind of add those numbers up to say, what could the Warriors maybe do to put together some players that could match Vooch's salary, and as you said, go maybe even get themselves a little bit of breathing room in such a trade. I think that the Warriors have the players on that roster to make it happen. It's just whether or not they like Vooch enough, and the concept of adding Vooch to their core of veteran players for a playoff run, so much so that they would be willing to let those younger players or other role players go and give up draft capital on top of that.
And one thing I'll say just before we go to break here and bring on Marc Stein is teams in this new CBA are really valuing depth and quality rotation more than they have before, right? And so the idea of going 10 or even 11 or even 12 deep, that's something that in the past teams have not really done, but now teams are leaning more into that. I think teams are playing faster, but they also they feel like they can't necessarily have the 3 max contracts and a bunch of minimums now. They need to have quality depth through the 10th man. And so when you're thinking about a 3 for 2 or a 2 for 1, you also have to consider the fact that if the Warriors are doing a trade like this, they'd be giving up multiple rotation players for 1. And so that's another consideration just in terms of what teams are valuing right now.
Still lots of wrinkles of this conversation to get to. When we come back from this break, we will be joined by the one and only Marc Stein and get his thoughts on all of this stuff and more. That's coming up next. Hit the like button while we share these words from our friends and sponsors.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt's a meat eater.
I am.
Katie's a meat eater. Will enjoys some meat. I don't. Not a meat eater. But we all can still hang out together at Hooters, ladies and gentlemen, because there's something for everyone at that restaurant. Because is there any better combination than Hooters and Chicago sports? Anybody? The answer is no. What makes the original Hooters so special? Well, that's very simple. They care about their people, the food they serve, the guests, and their community. An experience like none other, based on years and years of hard work. Well, what they got available? What? Well, how about you put your wallet down and check this out real quick? You can grab Hooters chicken tenders and fries, or chicken tender tacos and fries for $9.99 each. Or if you're feeling very bold, like Will Gottlieb always is, you can try Hooters' new mango habanero wang sauce. Oh, you can dive into Hooters' new shareable apps like those crispy pickle fries and warm and salty pretzels. Yes. Matt is a fan of those things. And, of course, the legendary $6 margarita available all day, every day. They got those January game specials. They got awesome deals on Bud Light, Michelob Ultra, Big Daddy Drafts. They got the hot wings, cold beer, your favorite cheerleaders. And 9 out of 10 of those Hooter girls agree that eating Hooters wings while watching the game will help your team win. It's science. So cheer on your favorite teams from any of the 11 Chicagoland Hooters locations. Shout out to the one in Schaumburg and shout out to the one in Orland Park as well. You can even order online for pickup and delivery. You can check them out at originalhooters.com.
You know what goes great with delicious chicken wings, Dave?
Please tell me.
Fine cannabis products.
That is a fact, actually.
Today's show also brought to you by VeriLife. Looking for the perfect way to elevate your day? At VeriLife Dispensary, they have everything you need, from premium cannabis products to expert advice. Whether you are new to cannabis or a connoisseur, their knowledgeable bud tenders are here to help you make the perfect selections. With 8 convenient locations across the state of Illinois, discovering your perfect experience has never been easier. VeriLife also proudly offers a price match guarantee, ensuring that you get the best value by matching local competitors' prices on eligible products. Don't miss out on their latest deals and exclusive offers only at VeriLife Cannabis stores and online at verilife.com. You got to check out some of their favorite brands at unbeatable prices. Some of their incredible brands include the award-winning lineup of Matter products. Matter offers a curated line of premium flower strains and infused gummies. I love myself a gummy. Crafted to deliver consistent quality and distinctive effects for every preference. If you place your online order, you can still use redeem code CHGO25 at pickup to receive a discount. Mention CHGO25 promo code in store and receive 25% off one regular priced item. Restrictions apply. VeriLife.com.
Give me the life.
Sounds like a great way to enjoy your Hooters chicken wings.
Exactly.
That's what you said. Yeah, it goes great with them.
I mean, like lamb and tuna fish. Perhaps he prefers spaghetti and meatball. More comfortable with that analogy? Oh, shout out Big Daddy. Underrated classic.
It is.
You know who's not an underrated classic, but just a classic?
Please tell me.
The one and only Marc Stein.
I just wanted to hear you say it.
NBA reporting legend.
Yeah.
Now part of the All-City fam over there with DLLS Mavs. If you aren't subscribed to his Substack that he's doing with Jake Fisher,
the hell are you
doing?
doing?
Are missing out.
Seriously, man.
Do it now.
For real.
Also, follow him on that one and only Twitter machine at the Stein Line. Joining us now, the one and only Marc Stein.
Hey. There you go, boy. What's up, Mark?
Jen, it is great to be with you. Few things in my all-city life that I look forward to more than hearing the CHGO team do their reads. You guys, that is itself.
True.
I'm glad I got to hear that.
Thank you, man.
Well, you know what, Stein, you are not alone. There's plenty of people who watch our show on a daily basis who are just tortured Bulls fans. They're like, I'm just here for the ad reads. This team is infuriating. Before you joined us, we were just talking about the latest report from Michael Scotto over there at HoopsHype that there could still be some juice between the Warriors looking to add a quality vet piece and the all-star caliber season that Nikola Vucevic is having here with us in Chicago. What could you add to that as far as the variables in a hypothetical deal between now and February 6th?
I don't think there's any question that Golden State likes Vooch and has been monitoring him, and the links between the Warriors and Vucevic. I mean, they've been, we've been talking about this, I think, for weeks now. And look, there's a lot of interesting variables here. What we've seen this week from the Warriors with Draymond Green and Stephen Curry and Steve Kerr all come out and basically say, we are not applying any heat to this front office to rush out and make a move. I mean, that has been a show in itself. I mean, you very rarely hear that. And it's why, I just look at the Warriors as being, not only is Stephen Curry just, an all-time great player and a tremendous guy as your franchise player, because he's just so, he's positive and someone who players rally around. But like the fact that Steph's almost 37. He turns 37 in March, but he's not like telling these guys, I demand that you do A, B, and C. That just makes the Warriors' job so much easier that he's not putting this tremendous pressure on them. But look, the intermediate, what they're really talking about is trading Kuminga and all the assets they have for, a Zach LaVine or a Brandon Ingram. If they're not going to do a deal like that, making a trade for Vucevic, it is a nice win now move that theoretically wouldn't burn through everything that they've saved up in terms of trade assets. But look, the Warriors have 3 tradable firsts. They only have 2 tradable seconds. So I'm sure the Bulls want at least 1 first for Vooch. Would Golden State be willing to trade one of its 3 tradable first-round picks for Nikola Vucevic? Would 2 seconds and expiring contracts be enough? I don't think it would be enough. Again, just me trying to evaluate things. We're exactly 3 weeks away from the trade deadline now. I think you guys might even echo this, that I think we could all see the Bulls saying, you know what, instead of 2 seconds, we'd rather just keep Vucevic into the summer, because they could revisit his trade market in the offseason. I mean, that is an option to them that has been little discussed. The Bulls don't have to trade him now. But every time I come on with you guys, I feel like this is the ground we cover. They are such a hard front office to read. Their approach is so confounding, and it's not just writers and media people like us trying to figure it out. Around the league, people are trying to figure it out, because we all know that first-round pick is only top 10 protected. And, until this week, they were winning too much for their own good. They were flirting with 500. Well, this recent funk they've been in has certainly taken care of that to some degree. So, is it a possibility? Yes. If it didn't happen, would I be shocked? No.
So, we know, obviously, if we're just looking at centers, Vooch is the best player and the best option. But I'm wondering, when do you think time will definitely become, the factor for either team? Because, as you stated, the Bulls could just say, you know what, we're going to hold on to Vooch. Or when Golden State could say, you know what, we don't want to deal with you guys anymore. We're going to look at Valanciunas. We're going to look at Time Lord. When do you think time will really become a factor for that?
The good news for the Bulls in this instance is Vucevic is the kind of player Golden State needs, and there's nobody else really in the marketplace. The Warriors have never really had a stretch big to play with Stephen Curry. And I know the GOAT Gottlieb was saying, it's unclear would the Warriors close with Vooch. I think it's unclear just what he could bring to that offense. We've never seen that. So look, if Golden State decides to say, you know what, we will trade you a first, or if they find some other way to maybe acquire more seconds and, load up that way. Like, I think the Warriors would be hoping that the presence of Draymond Green, who is really as good a defensive quarterback as there is in terms of running a defense, he's guarded every position. I mean, he's just such a great point man for a defense. They would be hoping that Draymond's presence would help mitigate some of the defensive issues. Now, and look, Vooch is not going to win a shot blocking title, but he's also a volume rebounder. And I think that conveniently gets forgotten. Like, that is an element of defense. And I mean, he's a 2010 guy who's shot the ball so well this year. So I think the intrigue on Golden State's part is there, that what would it look like to have a true stretch five in this offense, and how could that unlock Stephen Curry? It really is just a matter of what the price point is. And if you've studied the market, look, we saw Indiana steal Thomas Bryant for 1 second-round pick swap, and Bryant's been really good for the Pacers as a backup to Miles Turner. I mean, he's really given them something. Just this week, we saw Nick Richards, who was another very in-demand big man, and Charlotte basically got the net of 2 second-round picks to send Richards to Phoenix because they sent 1 second-rounder out and brought in 3 second-rounders from the Suns. I mean, again, the way Vucevic is shooting the ball, you're not going to get him for 2 seconds. I mean, I can't see why the Bulls would do that. But, like I said, the Bulls, to me, are right to hold out for at least one first. See if you can get a first. Because I'm sure they're looking at it at this point saying, if we keep the team we have and we finish 10th, either we sneak into the playoffs with 2 wins in the play-in, or, we're going to give up a lottery pick that's in the 11 to 14 range, because if they jump up in the lottery, they get to keep the pick. But, that's, and that's something that DraftX, you really need a draft. We all know how good the top of the 2025 draft is. Obviously, Cooper Flagg, Bailey, Dylan Harper, the players at the top of top 5-6 picks. I mean, you do not want to lose that kind of pick. But being 1 to 10 protected, they wouldn't. Is an 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th pick, are they better off just sending that to the Spurs and being done with the trade obligations from DeRozan? I mean, that's what they're weighing right now in that front office.
Mark, do you get the sense, because to me, like, the leverage that you're talking about the Bulls having in holding out for a first-round pick, which I agree is the right thing to do, that's coming from a place of, well, we've got him under contract for next year. We don't really have to do this. And maybe even if we don't, we can still be the 8th or 9th worst team in the league, keep our pick, and give ourselves a chance to move up. But are there other teams that have shown any interest in Vooch to where now the Bulls can start a little bit of a bidding war and actually justify the first round cost? Because I agree with you that he is playing like he is worth a first round pick, but if there just aren't any on the market and the Bulls are going to move him or have committed to doing that, then why not just get something done, compared to in these next 3 weeks? Like, will any other suitors or have any other suitors come up in some of those conversations to where the Bulls can say, well, you don't want to give me a pick, maybe I can get one from X or Y or Z other team?
I think we can safely assume that were a first round pick available, they would have taken it and jumped on it and done something. And, that is where realistically we're probably going to have to get closer to the trade deadline to spark that action and see if a team out there decides to give in. But if you really, again, look what happened with Brooklyn. Brooklyn was adamant, we are not trading Dorian Finney-Smith unless we get a first rounder. We are not trading Dennis Schroeder unless we get a first rounder. And they could not get a first rounder for either of those guys, who would be obviously not similar position-wise, but similar cases to Vooch, in which they were both playing very well and had contracts that are fairly easily absorbed for teams. Now, in the Nets case, the Nets were in a rush to start losing, to be perfectly honest with you. They started out 10-15, and they just got all their picks back from Houston. Like, the Nets need to be bad. They need to be top 5 in the league bad. And they were too competent with all the veterans. So, like, they kind of had to act quick. I can see where the Bulls are looking at it and saying, would it be like they're not in the same rush because they might end up in the same place. Like, Zach LaVine is playing maybe the best basketball of his career. And Vooch is shooting it as well as he ever has. But, they've been in that 10th range in the West the whole time. And I guess they can probably live with that because, if they miss out on the playoffs, if they're in the lottery, if they're in the top 10, if the pick lands in the top 10, they'll keep it. And, they're probably telling themselves, it won't be fatal if, we have to surrender a low lottery pick in this thing. But, I know Bulls fans don't want to hear that, especially after the Caruso trade that brought back no picks at all. And that's where kind of the history here is interesting because, the Warriors wanted Caruso, and the Warriors were set at the time to be offering at least a first and maybe more a year ago for Caruso. So the fact that we've got the Warriors and the Bulls engaged to some degree again is pretty interesting.
Well, Mark, you mentioned Zach and the Warriors talk. In addition to them having interest in Vooch, people have been talking about that. But we've been hearing from national and local people recently that the Zach LaVine trade, market is all quiet on the Western Front right now, which you kind of find hard to believe. You just said it yourself, one of the best seasons of his career. It's not just Vooch having career numbers shooting the ball. So is Zach LaVine. He's shooting over 51% from the field right now. He's shooting a career best 45% from 3 on 7 attempts a game as a 24 points per game scorer. Like, how is it? Like, you talk to NBA people all over the country. Is it legitimately true that there's just nobody out there right now saying, I know it'll be tricky, but we got to find a way to add Zach LaVine to our playoff-bound roster?
It's 100% contractual. It's nothing he's doing wrong because he's bounced back healthy. Again, he looks great, and he is playing. He will be an all-star. I don't see any way Zach LaVine is not chosen by the coaches as an all-star. But the perception is that if you trade for him, you're adding an offense-first player, and you don't really have that team out there, right? Like let's just go back a year ago. Like, when Dallas went into the trade deadline, Dallas was like, we need to make major moves here. We've got to do something significant. Like, you don't really have that kind of team in the marketplace right now to say, you know what? LaVine's playing so well. Let's just roll the dice and go all in here. So I don't think it's anything he's done wrong. But it's just with the kind of years and dollars that are left on his deal in the new world of multiple luxury tax aprons, it's just easier to make that kind of trade in the off season. So,
Up on that
yeah,
one.
I mean, you could really look at it and say, like, Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic have done exactly what the Bulls would have hoped for. I mean, they've both been so good that offers should be piling up, but it's really circumstantial. It's contractual. It's a function of teams trying to get used to these new luxury tax aprons. And I think they both have an all-star case, to be honest with you. I mean, something else I was hoping you guys could explain to me. How is there not a single Bull in the top 10 in either front court or back court all-star voting?
Oh, no,
What's going on?
Well, because it's fan voting that we're seeing the returns on the third round coming in today. And Bulls fans right now are not going to go through the trouble of logging into the NBA app to cast a vote for a player for a team that they feel very lukewarm at best about right now. Fans vote for players that they're passionately watching. Bulls fans are not passionately watching right now. At least I think so.
No, and also I think that if a guy like Lonzo Ball was having an even better season, you would see his name up there. But that's more so because he's so known globally.
LaMelo's at the top of East Guard vote getters with almost 2 million votes.
Jordan Poole is
playing
up
on a trash team.
Yeah, man.
Let me just tell you, the reason it surprises me is because, I know the Bulls draw very well at home, but I've written about this a lot on my Substack. I love to travel abroad. In the off season, I cannot get enough. It is amazing, nearly 30 years since Michael Jordan last played a game for the Bulls, how popular this team remains globally. I was in both England and Romania this summer, countries you would not associate with basketball, and just saw tons of Bulls stuff. It's not just Jordan stuff. I mean, you see Zach's jersey. You see, in recent years, I've seen DeRozan's jersey, like wherever I go. And so I would have thought even globally, those guys would be picking up some votes. So I actually looked at that before I came on, saying, maybe I know you guys want to talk 99.9% trades, but I said, let's look at the All-Star voting. I couldn't believe you get Bull on there.
Well, and the other thing that somebody in our comments pointed out is that the Bulls just switched to a new network, and there's an issue with a large portion of the local fan base being able to actually watch the team's games this season. So
it's a good point.
Yeah, that's one of the major problems in today's NBA. I mean, it's not just Chicago. There are so many markets like that where it's a challenge to get the games. Crazy.
Nuts.
Mark, before we send you out of here, any other rumblings, thoughts, predictions about any of the other players on this Bulls roster? Because I am seeing the value in the Bulls kind of holding firm at this point. I think if they really wanted to pull what the Nets did, they should have done that earlier. They didn't want to do that. They're trying to hold out. Maybe they get something for their guys. Maybe they don't, and they kick the can down the road because they have more time on their contract, as you said. But at a certain point, you do kind of have to start pulling some levers to get yourself in a better position in terms of the draft lottery. Is there interest in Lonzo Ball around the league with the way that he is playing? He's been outstanding the last few weeks. The Bulls have some other vets, Javon Carter, Torrey Craig, or would they even start to look at Kobe White or Ayo Dosunmu just to kind of set themselves up as those are some of the guys that actually could return real first-round pick value?
Yeah, look, I think the bulk of the chatter and focus league-wide and talking to other teams, it's been Zach LaVine because we know they've been trying to trade him going back since before Thanksgiving last season. And it's Vooch and Lonzo Ball because they're proven players and their contracts are absorbable. And, in Vooch's case, he's had a fantastic season. Again, I'm going to be really interested to see how his all-star fate plays out with East coaches. And Lonzo, because he has, you can bring him in, you can put the ball in his hands as a reserve, and he knows what to do. So I think it's conceivable, especially in those latter two cases. But, 3 weeks to go, it doesn't sound like a long time, but it's still a pretty fair amount of time that I think the Bulls are going to be written and talked about a lot in the lead up to the deadline. I don't think that's going to change. So at least I would assume that you guys will find that entertaining and intoxicating on some levels, that the Bulls are going to be talked about a lot. But we've seen, you brought up Caruso and Drummond, it was the same thing a year ago. And in the end, neither moved. So
Yes.
Bulls fans might not be happy with another 10th seed play-in tournament appearance, but the people who run this team sure seem to be that's their favorite thing ever. But at least we have 3 weeks of trade talk. That is the win the Bulls fans will take, and of course would also take any and all insights whenever you lend us your time. Marc Stein, always a pleasure when you join us. Bulls Nation, if you want to get a feel for what's going on out there in the Western Conference of the NBA, one of the great ways to do that is tune into that DLLS Mavs coverage as well as PHNX Suns, DNVR Nugs. Make sure you subscribe to that Substack he does with Jake Fisher. Follow him at The Stein Line. Mark, appreciate you, buddy. Enjoy your weekend.
Going of the night.
Sounds good, guys. We will do this again before the deadline. Be good.
Yes, sir.
Let's
You too,
do it.
Thanks, Stein.
Peace. He's awesome.
All right, gentlemen. Real quick before we take our second ad break, biggest takeaway from what Stein just said. I mean, the whole if I were the Bulls or if I'm putting myself in the Bulls' shoes, I don't send Vooch away for just a couple of seconds. He said they should be able to get a first for him.
That's the biggest thing that stuck out to me. My thing and him. That's why I asked him the time question.
Right.
Because at some point in time, a team is going to say, "Look,
Who's
dude,
gonna budge
we got to
first?
move on." Exactly.
Piss or
Who's
get
going to
off the
budge
pot.
first? That right there, man. Do that, or the other one.
Right. Yeah.
Number one or number two. But go ahead, Will.
It's just, I think, a staring contest of who's going to budge first, and there's an opportunity cost with it too. If the Warriors trade a first round pick for Vooch, that means they can't trade it with Jonathan Kuminga for Jimmy Butler or for the next star that comes across, and so they're weighing that. They're weighing whether it makes sense to even trade for him in the first place, given his limitations. And I think they are interested for sure, but I think that they have questions, and that's totally legit. But at a certain point, that's why they always say like deadlines spark activity when it really comes down to it. And where are the Warriors right now in the standings? Like if they are the 11th seed or the 10th seed, are they really going to let a 37-year-old Steph Curry fizzle out like this?
Right.
No.
I don't know. And if the Bulls hold firm and are able to capitalize on this, that would be a massive win for them.
Massive.
With that, let us knock out our second ad break. Then when we come back, we're going to dive into some other stuff that came out earlier today. Sam Amick, who had that report on The Athletic a few days ago that we were talking about with Billy and the comments of the mediocrity and how do we get out of here, was on the Athletic Daily NBA pod and had a few other interesting things to say about AK and what the Bulls are asking for Vooch and some of these other players out there. So we'll talk about that next on the other side of this break. Hit the like for Marc Stein coming through, dropping the knowledge while we share these words from our friends and sponsors.
Friends and sponsors. Kenny, what's up?
Game time hoot.
I like it's no panic anymore now. It's just straight zen. I love it. Just calming influence.
I panicked a little bit.
Yo,
I forgot that we had game time today.
It's all right, man.
There's so much urgency in your voice.
I know. And I felt it, and I knew to go to kick.
Yeah.
Saw that. Mind meld. That's how we go. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events easier than ever. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find your best value. Curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, Will the Go Gottlieb's one-man show starting next month. Of course, they got their all-in pricing. Of course, they got the lowest price guarantee, y'all. And of course, they got that Game Time ticket coverage, which comes with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. But they have got the Matt Peck and Big Dave favorite, the seat views. Where we sitting? I'm sitting on the end. Got to stretch out the legs. What leg do I stretch out on which side I'm sitting on? Do I want to stretch out the knee? Do I want to stretch out the right? Whatever. I'm going to figure it out. Stretch them both right there, man. We're going to see Will's one-man show. We got to know where we can do these things. And, of course, bathrooms, beer. Got to have all that, man. Seat views. We need it. Game Time's got it. Take advantage, man. Take advantage. And take that guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code CHGO. Get yourself $20 off your first purchase.
Terms apply.
Oh, that's CHGO. Get yourself $20 off your first purchase. Hello, Game Time today! Because what to go Gottlieb, what time is it?
Game time.
Hoot.
Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks.
Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. It's also the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million members and sign up today. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't 100% perfect. You can even double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my Prize Picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks also, in addition to Venmo, offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your accounts this sports season. Y'all, we got some epic NFL playoff matchups on deck this weekend. I am so freaking stoked.
Wait.
Do you think Lamar Jackson will get more than 250 passing yards next week? What about Patrick Mahomes?
Yes.
Cook up some hot takes for yourself with your friends and win real money this football playoff season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Here's what you do. Download that Prize Picks app today. Use promo code CHGO to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use promo code CHGO to get $50 instantly after you play your first just $5 lineup. You get the $50 either way. Prize Picks, run your game.
Prize Picks, who?
Prize Picks, who? All right, y'all. Whoop. With our remaining time, wanted to go back to what I just mentioned. The Athletic NBA Today pod, their daily pod covering the NBA, they brought in Sam Amick.
Shout out to my
today.
guy S.
What's that?
Shout out to my guy S.
That's right. And Dave DeFore, right, is the other regular host on that. They brought in Sam Amick to talk about his recent report for The Athletic. And towards the end, they did a little bit of Bulls talk. Katie, do you have that audio that we can play right now?
Bulls talk.
Go for it.
Now with Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, Lonzo Ball, the contract situations looming for Ball as well. What have you heard from the Bulls side and what they might do?
So, it's just kind of this angst from parts of the league, teams that would potentially like to get something done with a Zach LaVine, with a Nikola Vucevic or Lonzo Ball, where, if I'm being frank about it, they continue to just look at Chicago on the other side of the negotiating table and just be shrugging like at what point are you going to realize this is the hand you have? It's time to play. And to give the listeners and the viewers the quick math, the Bulls have to finish in the bottom 6 to absolutely guarantee that they hold on to their pick. If they are the 7th worst team in the NBA, then, and it's real small, but a 3% chance of getting of losing their pick. And from there, then you're talking about a 75% chance if they're the 8th worst team, then you're kind of giving it up. In this day and age where the CBA is structured in such a way that lottery picks are just absolutely integral to a team's building or rebuilding, it seems just absolutely insane for most teams, or to most teams, for them to give this pickup right now, considering that nobody thinks that Zach has a long-term future in Chicago or Vooch or, Lonzo's a different discussion. Maybe they want to get something done with him. But admittedly, we don't ever know all of the details about what's being put on the table and what they're saying no to. But the general idea is that their asking prices continue to be higher than, some other teams believe should be based on their situation. And what those teams are counting on is the clock, right? And the calendar. Right. And the idea that go ahead, keep winning, because if you want to be bottom 6 in the NBA, even though they kind of claim they don't, you need to be literally in the neighborhood of a 300 winning percentage, and they're pushing 500 right now.
Again, that was Sam Amick talking on today's episode of the Athletic NBA Daily Podcast. Shout out to that crew. Couple of things I noticed there. He talked about the clock, the calendar, which goes with what you were saying, Dave, of like, hey, the Warriors have some options to beef up their front court, and the Bulls are playing hardball, and they're sick of it. Yeah, go on, keep on winning these games that are screwing up your draft pick. And the thing that I really enjoyed Sam Amick saying, and he said similar things in his column, and I thought did so very eloquently earlier this week, was, quote, "It seems just absolutely insane to most teams for them, the Bulls, to give this pick up right now, knowing that Zach and Vooch are seemingly not a part of their long-term plans in Chicago." So, why is it that the Bulls and their front office are not really at the negotiating table in ways that they probably should be?
I mean, first of all, you have to consider, where this information is coming from. So they asked him, what are the Bulls thinking about doing? And his response was, teams are looking at the Bulls like they're crazy for not wanting to, play their cards. And so, obviously, that's coming from other teams, right? And so you can say the Bulls are playing hardball. They want to get more. And as we just talked about with Mark, Vooch is worth a first-round pick right now. I think they are right to hold out for that. The issue is that they should have played this, I think, a little bit differently from the start, to where you give up those guys earlier, and maybe you're only getting the second-round picks the way the Nets did for Schroeder and DFS, but at least you are now putting yourselves to be in position to get into the bottom 6. I think that ship has sailed. I do not think they're getting into the bottom 6 now, even if they pull every lever and sit Zach and Vooch doesn't play. I mean, they're too far out of the race at this point. And so if the worst you can do is 8 and you're thinking, well, maybe Philadelphia, they're not playing well, but we're only 2 games in front of them. Maybe they come back and get us anyway, and we'll be outside of the play-in. Then it does, I think, make sense to continue to hold out now for these final 3 weeks when the stress and the pressure and the urgency to get into the bottom 6 just doesn't exist anymore. And so I think the Bulls are playing it right, given where they are. There are things that I would have done differently from the start, but I think for where they are, it makes sense to hold out, and it makes sense that teams would be frustrated, right? Yeah. If the Bulls aren't giving you guys cheaply, they would be frustrated about that. And so I think at a certain point, both sides are going to have to come together, realizing that the best thing for them to do is find a deal that works for both parties, whether that's a first-round pick or protected or expiring or whatever it is. I think ultimately, look, the Bulls know they need to get out of the middle, and they know the best way to do that, but they're just making life a little bit dangerous for themselves. And I think ultimately they're going to have to start to make some of these tough decisions, but it's just a matter of, as you said, the timing and what is the cost, and are teams willing to pay that? And are the Bulls willing to take the risk of keeping those guys beyond the deadline, which I think is a real possibility, and still feel like they can keep the pick anyway? And that is the big question here.
Yeah, they're enjoying playing with fire. It really bothers me that it's not just 1 or 2 other teams who are looking at the Bulls like, what are you guys doing? It really bothers me that it's the league.
It's the league
looking at the Chicago Bulls saying, what are y'all doing right now? That's more concerning to me than anything. And our Marc Stein said, that they're a hard read. Nobody really knows what they want to do. Nobody has any idea what's, up their sleeves, because the things that they've said they've wanted are pretty astronomical. And
I'm picturing Kenneth Parcell at the poker table in that episode of 30 Rock where Jack Donaghy cannot read him at all because he's just got that doofy shit-eating grin on his face the whole time.
Dude,
that's AK at the negotiating table.
That's him, because you're either really a genius or not. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they haven't figured that out yet. I think we have opinions, but no one's really figured that out yet. I agree with you, Will, that they're playing it right with the situation that they're in.
For where they are now.
That's my point.
Right.
I'm there. I'm with you. For where they are now, they're playing it right. But I even more so agree with you that they shouldn't be in this situation. Yeah. They should have gotten started on that a little bit sooner on that. They're playing with real fire, and they're letting the things, I think you've said this before, Will, don't want to be the team to just let the things happen to you. You want to be somebody that's actually, in the forefront, making the things happen and not just accepting what comes. And they were in a position to not have to do that.
Yeah.
And for some reason they feel stronger about what they have than the league is telling you. Again, this is the league. These aren't the teams telling you. This is the league. That, for me, Matt, Will, is much more concerning.
Well, I think the way to look at this at this point is
tiers.
Would you rather have, the 8th, 9th, 10th best odds in the lottery and 2 second-round picks? Or would you rather have the 9th or 10th and a first-round pick? And so maybe there's a little bit more upside for your own pick, and obviously the downside risk of losing it, but you're banking on that opportunity to potentially turn your guys into first-round picks. And so if that works out for them, I think it will have been a success. If they get their 8th in the lottery odds at the end of the year and they have a first round pick for Vooch, I think that will have been a win.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been necessarily best case scenario because you could have potentially started sooner. But again, from where they are right now, I think they're hoping that the outcome will be 8th worst team and a first round pick. And if that works out, I think they would be happy with that. But there's also the downside of, well, if you can't get that first round pick and maybe you're not happy with seconds, or maybe you just end up with seconds and you're putting yourself more at risk. So I think they're just playing with fire, as you said, Dave. And I think that they are not far off from coming away with like a good outcome, but they're also not far off from coming away with like a disaster outcome.
Yes.
And maybe walking the line a little bit more conservatively with regards to keeping the pick.
Mm-hmm.
It may not have been conducive to potentially getting that first, but it also would be more conducive to you getting a better pick with your own thing. And so that's the kind of calculus that they're looking at right now.
And that's the part that's scary. People in the comments chiming in, AJ Cat saying, what of their Bulls front offices actions says they know they need to get out of the middle, which is why I just kind of said, do they?
Well,
no, when John said that.
I'm saying they do.
So you're saying they do. They AJ saying they've showed their content being exactly there. Reagan, assuming this front office knows anything, feels dangerous. When you say they, some people, I might posit, AK's bosses are the ones who are content staying in the middle. AK might not be. AK might actually be unhappy with where they are and would like to get out of the middle, but it's the fear that is, I think, gripping Bulls fans right now of like, God, it's the stick figure meme that everybody uses. It's like, come on, do something. Yeah, this team hasn't made a trade deadline trade over the last 3 seasons. The only team in the NBA to not do so in that 3-year span. Yeah. And when they finally do make a trade this summer, other than the giddy stands out there, I think most of us felt gypped by that trade.
Yeah, pretty much.
And also most people would agree they lost the Vooch trade when they brought him in 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Most people are still sitting here saying, my God, we're worrying about protecting this pick, keeping this pick, because they overpaid to bring DeMar here for a team that ended up being mid. So it's like, we have to do something. And also we're terrified of what happens if and when they do something.
But again, at this point, like, they've already missed the boat on getting into the bottom. And I think that's its own problem. Yes. But now, considering where they are, if they're going to be between 8 and 9, in all likelihood, regardless of whether they do a bad deal for Zach or Vooch, why wouldn't they then try again this summer when teams are going to have more flexibility, teams are going to have more interest, the cap is going to go up, it'll be easier to make one of these deals in the offseason. I don't think that is wrong. I think what was wrong was the original approach, but now given where they are, it may end up working out for them because now, as we talked about with Mark, they can use that leverage of, look, we're going to be in the bottom 8 or 9 anyway. I'm not going to give Zach LaVine up when there's an opportunity for me to maybe get more for him this summer. So doesn't it at some point make sense to say, let's just hold off. We can pull whatever levers we need to try to get into the bottom 8. And, that's not perfect. It's not necessarily like the most ideal, but if it allows us to then come away with a first round pick out of it, then it will have been worth it. And again, that is the risk. It's not a guarantee because if you don't, now you've maybe lost on both of those fronts. Yeah. And that is where I think things can get really dicey. But I do think that just given where they are right now and what I believe their motivations to be, I don't think that they have completely, screwed this up yet. Yeah. And we'll talk after the deadline. And if they don't do anything, that's a separate thing. Yeah. But I think they are right at this point, again, with the caveat of this being where they are and past opportunities being in the past. Like, I do think that they are right to try to get something for the guys that are playing as well as they are.
Well, we'll put a pause on that conversation there for now because we've got to get out of here. Blackhawks pregame on deck with our crew. Blackhawks in Nashville taking on the Preds tonight, 7 o'clock puck drop. So you got some more content coming your way. Keep it right here on the CHGO Sports YouTube channel for that. Again, shout out to Stein for joining us today. Follow Will the Goat, Will_Gottlieb, reading stuff, allchgo.com. Big Dave is a bow, BAWL Sports. I'm Bulls_Peck. We are CHGO_Bulls. Shout out and thanks, of course, to the one and only Queen of the Controls, Katie Duffy. Bulls back in action tomorrow. Homestand ends, hosting the Charlotte Hornets. Will we finally get LaMelo versus Lonzo?
Yes.
Let's hope so.
Yes.
Pre-game, 6:30 Central. We will see you there. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like on your way out. Make sure you subscribe. Hawks coming up next. See Red be good.
Bye, Sarah.
We all